So when you really get right down to it, is the fact that we get so upset about somebody else, about our mate cheating with someone else, it's objectively kind of ridiculous, I think. And I think it becomes the most ridiculous when the person has successfully hidden the fact that they are with someone else from you, and they're clearly able to make you feel satisfied and good. It's just that you're upset about the mere existence of somebody else that this person feels an affinity to. And don't get me wrong, I remember I liked this girl, and when it was clear that she liked someone else, I felt like if someone had kicked me in the chest. And it was, I've heard it described, people say it's a physical pain. You actually have a pain in your chest. And it was, it could have been like a heart attack or something. It was such a real, physically present pain. And of course, you can't turn off the fact that you still want the person that you want. You just don't want them to want anybody else as much, anywhere close to as much as they want you, as they're interested in you. And even when somebody else is not even cheating, you'd prefer that, or many of us would prefer that they not even find other people to be attractive, which of course is ridiculous because you are other people until they found you, and now you want them to stop being a normal human being, and you are still aware that you find other people to be attractive. I had a friend who said that she could only find one person attractive at a time. Um, I think that there might be something subconscious that happens with women because I remember that they've done experiments where they show women pornography, and the woman will say that no, they didn't feel anything. But when they put, for example, monitors or devices to measure whether or not a woman secreted any liquid in her vagina, for example, they detected it. They detected arousal, physiological arousal, when women were saying no, they weren't moved by it. And but like I was saying, we just want that person. And even when it comes to a friendship, you don't really want the person to be as good friends with somebody else as you do. If you have two friends and they meet each other, sometimes they'll compete as to who is a better friend. And you might find that if you meet a friend of your friends, you might feel competitive, you might feel envy or jealousy and or envy about the other person when you don't need to. Obviously, you're in two different spheres. Maybe you know one person from work, you know the other person from church or something like that. So there's no real overlap that you need to compete for. And it might be the same thing with respect to a woman, you or a man, your spouse or your mate, you might feel like, no, no, I want all of them. Even though you know very well that there's some topics, if, for example, sports or the arts, that you're not interested in, that the other person is interested in, you would like to pretend that you enjoy it as much, maybe temporarily, but you do know that whatever the topic is that they share with the other person, that you have no interest in there, you don't have any stake in there really, but you don't want the other person, you don't want to feel like you're losing the other person. And in a way, for many of us, it doesn't even really matter if you're losing them or not, you just don't want to be second or third in your mind, that this person, maybe you're not even realizing that it's not about second or third, it's just a different circumstance. This person can satisfy the other person on a different level that you can't or don't want to, but you're still jealous. And it could really be that we have not adapted. And by adapted, I mean those of us who don't suit the modern day state of affairs. We haven't died off. We haven't failed to reproduce. And by the modern state of affairs, in modern day state of affairs, I mean that in the past, maybe all of your time would have just been spent primarily with your family. And we didn't have, transportation to be far away from our family members for any extended period of time during the day, because that would have meant a lot of wasted time walking from one place to the other, or riding a horse or something like that on a daily basis. And for most people, especially poorer people during the farming era, that would not have been possible to be able to walk too far away. And in hunter gatherer days, you just would never be that far away from your spouse. And as a result of that, if somebody else was actually taking the attention of your mate or your spouse, they would really be taking up time that otherwise would be spent with you, or taking care of you and your mate's children. They would actually be taking away resources that would ensure the survival of your kids. So that was a really good reason to be jealous, because if you weren't going to be jealous, it might mean that your kids might not be able to survive very well. But in the modern era, where we can support many different kids, many different children, especially as a result of farming, especially as a result of using oil to be able to travel, and the ease of provision of food and so on. There really isn't that much reason to be jealous, because a person can support so many kids. So there's no real threat to the survival of any children that you have with that particular person. So there's no real need to be afraid of anything like that. Additionally, as a result of work and whatever responsibility, most or a lot of the time in any given day, you can be physically very, very far away from your spouse. So it's not as if, a lot of times I feel that when I was in a relationship, this cheating thing is because the person isn't there. So you miss them, or you miss the company of somebody that you like being present with you. Because, this person might have gone on a vacation with their family for some reason, or they went on a trip for school, or for business, or for work, or whatever, and there you are. In hunter-gatherer days, this would never happen. There were no business trips. There were no educational trips. There were no anything that would keep the person that far away from you for any extended period of time. And here you are without anybody, in the presence of other people that you are biologically drawn to. And that's really the big problem. So, but this amount of time that we've spent being developed and developing into what we presently are, it is, as they say, a blink of an eye. Oil, some people say it might take hundreds of years for oil to end. And all the other fossil fuels, it might take hundreds of years for them to be completely exhausted. If we are using fossil fuels, and climate change has not decimated us, it was always going to end. We are developed because of fossil fuels. And humanity has been around for about, let's say, 300,000 years. We have been substantially developed, let's say, 10,000 years. 200,000 to 10,000. So no, we don't really have to adapt to this blink of an eye. And I'm using 10,000 and totally exaggerating. Even if I say it's 1,000 years, that's a big exaggeration. We have not been able to do most of the things that we can do that are we consider to be amazing for 1,000 years. Barely for 100 years, we've had photographs and radio and all of these different things. Of course, nuclear energy would take us a little bit further on. Solar energy is going to be there for a long, long time if we decide to get onto that at some point. So, but of course, it's that jump from the unsustainable, which is fossil fuels, to the sustainable, which is something that can last for more than, a couple 100 years of use. Um, so we have to see. We might, we have, ascended to a certain extent, and there's a long way for us to fall, and we may fall very much back to where we started 200,000 years ago. We don't know. There are no guarantees. So it very well might be that we do not need to change very much at all, because ultimately nothing much will change. We will go back potentially. We may potentially go back to the whole thing where we do need to be jealous because of the survival of our children. So we'll see how it goes, right?